Now, to look at this one, we're going to be dealing with the calf muscle and the shin. Now, you really don't have a very defined set of muscles on the shin area, but we do need to make sure that we define the indentation really along the inside of the leg that kind of separates the shin from that calf muscle. So we're going to start by digging that in a little bit right there. Got to use the sculpt brush. So we're going to start by carving that in. Now obviously that's a bit too far, so we're going to soften it. Really the whole idea though is to just start moving around the mesh. Again, always referencing, some reference images of muscle structure and such. Bodybuilders are really good. But I want to keep moving around the mesh and just start to see how and where things are supposed to flow. So I'm sculpting things out and then smoothing it back in, just looking for the overall feeling of the way things move. Always checking reference images. Once we adjust how that muscle sits there, I'm going to push it back on the back of the leg a little more. So as I work around the mesh, what I'm really looking for is to see how those masses are actually sitting on top of the surface of the mesh. So as we push things out and then soften them back in, we really want to keep looking to see how that's working around the entire mesh. Now, that calf muscle actually is looking pretty good. It's a little bulky, but we do actually start seeing how the calf muscle is kind of divided in the center. A little too strong. So now again, using reference images, we're trying to push the understanding and structure of the pit of the knee or the back of the knee and see how the muscles from the thigh and the hamstrings actually insert around the knee and basically build the structure and stability of the knee. So again, always checking reference images, but then we can start to kind of block in those masses and really get the feeling of the flow of the musculature moving around the knee. Thinking about how those muscles intersect and overlap each other. So as you sculpt and smooth, you can kind of move things around and adjust. That's not too bad for the calf. It's definitely a good start, and it's got everything blocked in where we want it. So now for our shin bone, we're going to define this a bit more. Because the shin toward the inner edge really can have kind of a sharp blade almost. So as we define that a bit more, we're going to be able to go back in and sculpt the kneecap a bit more as well. Because from the bottom edge of the kneecap, there's a pretty serious tendon that comes down and attaches to the shin bone. So while we do want to definitely kind of smooth that back in, defining that tendon is going to help us kind of carve in around the kneecap and define the kneecap itself a bit more. So then as we smooth that back in a bit, we can see the definition of the knee, which then just really continues to help to figure out where and how to define the muscle masses around that structure. She's got to kind of work in increments, figure out where things go. Anytime we're really kind of pushing the mesh around, we always want to make sure that we're going back and kind of smoothing in the transitions so we don't end up with anything that feels too unnatural. Now, obviously, we're dealing with a barbarian and we're exaggerating reality, but we do want to make sure that we're at least basing things on reality. So if you carve in a little bit, again, you always want to go back and smooth, but using the control to sculpt negative really does help define areas. So that a little bit deeper, you can start to see how that calf muscle kind of sits on the back of the leg. So anywhere that we can start to make it feel like we can see the underlying structure, whether it be bone or muscle, tendon, all that good stuff, is going to help the believability of our model. On the outer part of the leg, there are actually some muscles over here, but they don't tend to get incredibly defined. So while we're going to kind of block them in there, we're going to smooth them back in so it's not too noticeable. All right, that looks pretty good.